Welcome to the Rest Research Lab. As you settle in tonight, we explore how morning sunlight governs your biology. You may be winding down, preparing for the restorative phases of sleep, and that is exactly where you should be. Simply let my voice guide you through the intricate, microscopic pathways that a single photon of morning light activates within your cells. All of the mechanisms we will discuss are anchored in peer-reviewed research, with links to every study naturally provided in the video description for your daytime curiosity. For now, there is nothing you need to do. Just breathe, relax, and allow the science to wash over you. Every morning, when the first rays of sunlight crest the horizon, they carry a specific spectrum of electromagnetic radiation. This is not merely illumination. It is biological information. It is a precise code that your body has evolved over millions of years to read, interpret, and translate into cellular action. When we miss this signal, our internal clocks drift, leading to a cascade of metabolic and neurological misalignment. But when we capture it, we synchronize our entire physiological architecture to the rotation of the Earth. As you drift towards sleep, we will explore exactly 100 distinct, scientifically validated reasons why this morning light is the master architect of your health, your recovery, and your deep rest tonight. Reason number 1. Activation of intrinsically photosensitive retinal ganglion cells. To understand how light shapes your health, we must begin at the eye. Deep within your retina lie specialized cells called intrinsically photosensitive retinal ganglion cells. These are not for seeing shapes or colors. They are for detecting the specific blue wavelength light of morning. When morning photons strike these cells, they activate a photopigment called melanopsin. This begins a signaling cascade that tells your brain the day has begun, anchoring your biology to the present moment and setting the stage for tonight's rest. Reason number 2. Synchronization of the suprachiasmatic nucleus. Once melanopsin is activated, the signal travels along the retinohypothalamic tract directly to the suprachiasmatic nucleus, the master clock of your brain. Without morning light, this master clock drifts by about 12 to 15 minutes a day, leading to a state of perpetual biological jet lag. Morning sunlight acts as a daily reset button, perfectly aligning your internal temporal architecture with the external world. Reason number 3. Suppression of residual melatonin. Many people wake up feeling groggy, a state known as sleep inertia. This occurs because melatonin, the hormone of darkness, is still circulating in the bloodstream. A 2024 analysis of sleep regulation demonstrates that early morning sunlight provides a sharp, immediate suppression of this residual melatonin. By clearing this hormone from your system, your body naturally transitions from the lethargy of sleep into a state of clear, calm wakefulness. Reason number 4. Initiation of the cortisol awakening response. Cortisol is often misunderstood merely as a stress hormone, but in the morning, it is your primary molecule of vitality. Morning light exposure amplifies the cortisol awakening response, a natural and necessary spike in cortisol that occurs within the first hour of waking. This spike mobilizes glucose for brain function and primes your immune system, ensuring you have the energy required for the day while paving the way for cortisol to drop naturally by evening. Reason number 5. Setting the circadian phase angle. The precise timing of your morning light exposure determines your circadian phase angle, which is the relationship between your internal clock and external time. By viewing sunlight early, you advance this phase angle, meaning your body will naturally begin to wind down earlier in the evening. This is the foundation of effortless sleep onset. Reason number 6. Upregulation of serotonin synthesis. Morning sunlight does not just affect sleep, it profoundly influences mood. The bright, full-spectrum light of the morning sun catalyzes the synthesis of serotonin in the brain. Serotonin is the neurotransmitter responsible for feelings of well-being, calm, and emotional stability. By securing morning light, you are literally building the molecular reservoir of happiness for your day. Reason number 7. The precursor pathway to evening melatonin. The serotonin created in the morning is not just for daytime mood, it serves a crucial secondary purpose. Serotonin is the direct biochemical precursor to melatonin. The pineal gland requires the serotonin synthesized during the day to convert into melatonin at night. Therefore, the depth of your sleep tonight was chemically determined by the sunlight you absorbed this morning. Reason number 8. Calibration of core body temperature rhythms. Your body temperature must rise in the morning to promote alertness and drop in the evening to allow for deep sleep. Morning light exposure signals the hypothalamus to initiate this thermogenic rise. By setting the peak of your temperature rhythm accurately during the day, you ensure a steeper, more sleep-inducing drop in core temperature at night. Reason number 9. Optimization of the dopaminergic system. Motivation and drive are governed by dopamine. Morning sunlight exposure has been shown to increase the availability of dopamine receptors in the striatum. This means that morning light not only wakes you up, but biochemically primes your brain to seek out rewarding, productive tasks with a sense of calm focus. Reason number 10. Reduction of sleep inertia duration. The heavy, foggy feeling upon waking can sometimes last for hours if we remain in dim, indoor environments. Research on sleep regulation indicates that high-lux morning light rapidly accelerates the dissipation of sleep inertia. It clears the neurochemical cobwebs, allowing the brain's default mode network to transition smoothly into active processing. Reason number 11. Synchronization of peripheral clocks. While the master clock resides in the brain, every single organ in your body, from your liver to your heart, has its own circadian clock. The morning light signal, sent by the master clock, cascades down through the autonomic nervous system, synchronizing these peripheral clocks. This ensures that your organs operate in perfect physiological harmony. Reason number 12. Enhancement of alpha brainwave activity. When you step into the morning light, your brain shifts its electrical output. The exposure to natural sunlight promotes the generation of alpha waves, which are associated with a state of relaxed alertness. This prevents the jarring, anxiety-inducing spike in beta waves that often occurs when waking up to harsh artificial alarms and screens. Reason number 13. Regulation of fasting blood glucose. Moving into the metabolic realm, morning sunlight plays a critical role in how your body handles sugar. A 2024 study focusing on patients with type 2 diabetes mellitus demonstrated that morning sunlight exposure significantly aids in stabilizing fasting blood glucose levels. The light signal helps align pancreatic insulin secretion with the body's actual energetic needs. Reason number 14. Enhancement of insulin sensitivity. When your circadian rhythm is anchored by morning light, your muscle and fat cells become more receptive to insulin. This means that the food you consume during the day is efficiently shuttled into cells for energy rather than remaining in the bloodstream. This circadian alignment prevents the metabolic wear and tear associated with insulin resistance. Reason number 15. Synergy with time-restricted eating. A systematic review on time-restricted eating highlights that the benefits of fasting are heavily dependent on circadian alignment. Morning light signals the beginning of the active metabolic phase. When you align your eating window with this light-induced metabolic awakening, you maximize the efficiency of nutrient partitioning and energy expenditure. Reason number 16. Activation of brown adipose tissue. Brown fat is a specialized type of tissue that burns calories to generate heat, a process called non-shivering thermogenesis. The combination of morning light and the naturally cooler morning air provides a dual stimulus that activates brown adipose tissue, enhancing your overall metabolic rate and promoting metabolic flexibility. Reason number 17. Mitigation of adiposity accumulation. Research measuring adiposity among young adults found a direct relationship between circadian disruption and fat accumulation. By viewing morning sunlight, you regulate the expression of clock genes in adipose tissue, which helps prevent the abnormal storage of lipids and supports a healthy, balanced body composition. Reason number 18. Regulation of ghrelin, the hunger hormone. If you find yourself experiencing intense, uncontrollable cravings, your light environment may be to blame. Morning sunlight helps regulate the secretion of ghrelin. Proper circadian entrainment ensures that ghrelin levels rise predictably before meals and fall appropriately afterward, preventing the erratic hunger spikes associated with circadian mismatch. Reason number 19. Optimization of leptin signaling. Leptin is the hormone that tells your brain you are full and have sufficient energy stores. Without proper morning light, leptin resistance can develop, causing the brain to believe the body is starving. Sunlight entrainment restores the sensitivity of the hypothalamus to leptin, promoting a natural sense of satiety and energetic balance. Reason number 20. Upregulation of mitochondrial ATP production. Deep within your cells, your mitochondria are responsible for producing adenosine triphosphate, or ATP, the energy currency of life. These mitochondria possess their own light-sensitive proteins. Exposure to the specific wavelengths of morning sunlight stimulates the electron transport chain, increasing the efficiency of ATP production for sustained daily energy. Reason number 21. Modulation of the postprandial glycemic response. How your body responds to your first meal is dictated by your light exposure. When your circadian clocks are synchronized by morning light, the postprandial or post-meal spike in blood sugar is significantly blunted. The body anticipates the influx of nutrients and prepares the metabolic machinery to handle it with grace and efficiency. Reason number 22. Reduction of hepatic gluconeogenesis. In a state of circadian confusion, the liver often produces excess glucose, a process called gluconeogenesis, even when it is not needed. Morning light signaling downregulates this process during the daytime feeding window, ensuring that the liver stores glycogen appropriately rather than releasing unneeded sugar into the bloodstream. Reason number 23. Alignment of the gut microbiome rhythm. Your gut bacteria also operate on a 24-hour rhythm. The light signals received by your brain are communicated to the enteric nervous system, helping to synchronize the feeding and fasting cycles of your microbiome. This promotes better digestion, reduces bloating, and supports the integrity of the intestinal lining. Reason number 24. Facilitation of lipid oxidation. The ability to burn fat for fuel, known as lipid oxidation, peaks during specific times of the circadian cycle. Morning sunlight exposure optimizes the timing of this peak, ensuring that during periods of fasting or light activity, your body efficiently utilizes stored fatty acids, preserving glycogen stores for high-intensity demands. Reason number 25. Lowering of resting heart rate. As we shift our focus to the heart, we find that circadian alignment through morning sunlight has a profound calming effect on cardiovascular tone. By regulating the autonomic nervous system, consistent morning light exposure gradually lowers your resting heart rate. A lower resting heart rate is a hallmark of cardiovascular efficiency and a state of physiological calm. Reason number 26. Enhancement of heart rate variability. Heart rate variability, or HRV, is the measure of the time difference between each heartbeat, and higher HRV indicates a resilient, adaptable nervous system. A 2025 analysis demonstrated that robust circadian rhythms, anchored by light, significantly improve HRV. Morning sunlight trains the nervous system to gracefully transition between stress and recovery. Reason number 27. Regulation of morning blood pressure surge. It is normal for blood pressure to rise slightly upon waking, but in a dysregulated system, this surge can be dangerous. Morning sunlight helps to smooth out this transition. By modulating the release of catecholamines like adrenaline and noradrenaline, sunlight ensures the morning blood pressure rise is gentle and controlled, protecting the vascular endothelium. Reason number 28. Nitric oxide release via UVA exposure. While we often focus on blue light for circadian rhythms, the gentle UVA rays present in morning sunlight penetrate the skin and stimulate the release of nitric oxide into the bloodstream. Nitric oxide is a potent vasodilator. It relaxes the inner muscles of your blood vessels, widening them and gently lowering systemic blood pressure. Reason number 29. Reduction of endothelial oxidative stress. The inner lining of your blood vessels, the endothelium, is highly susceptible to damage from oxidative stress. The circadian alignment provided by morning light optimizes the body's internal antioxidant defense systems, particularly the production of endogenous glutathione, which sweeps through the vascular system, neutralizing damaging free radicals. Reason number 30. Synchronization of cardiac clock genes. The heart muscle itself expresses clock genes that dictate its metabolic preference throughout the day. Morning light synchronizes these cardiac clocks, ensuring the heart efficiently switches from burning fatty acids during the night to utilizing glucose during the day. This metabolic flexibility is crucial for long-term cardiac endurance. Reason number 31. Mitigation of shift worker cardiovascular risk. Research on shift-working healthcare workers highlights the severe cardiovascular toll of circadian disruption. Morning sunlight exposure, when properly timed after a shift or on days off, acts as an emergency reset. It helps to rapidly realign the autonomic nervous system, mitigating the elevated cardiovascular risks associated with irregular sleep-wake cycles. Reason number 32. Improvement of vagal tone. The vagus nerve is the superhighway of the parasympathetic, or rest and digest, nervous system. Morning sunlight exposure, particularly when combined with morning movement, has been shown to enhance vagal tone. A strong vagal tone acts as a brake on the stress response, keeping you grounded and calm as you navigate the demands of the day. Reason number 33. Reduction of systemic inflammation. Chronic low-grade inflammation is a driver of nearly all modern diseases. Circadian disruption exacerbates this inflammation. By anchoring your rhythm with morning light, you optimize the daily release pattern of cortisol, which in its proper physiological dose acts as a potent anti-inflammatory agent, keeping systemic inflammation in check. Reason number 34. Optimization of the coagulation cascade. The blood's ability to clot is also under circadian control, peaking in the morning to protect against injury during the active phase. Proper morning light exposure ensures this coagulation cascade remains balanced, providing necessary protection without tipping into a state of hypercoagulability thereby maintaining optimal blood fluidity. Reason number 35. Enhancement of microvascular perfusion. Beyond the large arteries, morning sunlight and the resulting nitric oxide release improve microvascular perfusion. This means that the smallest capillaries in your body, those that deliver oxygen and nutrients to your skin, your brain, and your extremities, open up fully, ensuring every cell breathes and receives the nourishment it needs. Reason number 36. Blunting of the sympathetic nervous system overdrive. Many people live in a state of chronic sympathetic overdrive, constantly bathed in stress hormones. Morning sunlight provides a definitive signal that the day has begun in a safe, predictable environment. This simple act of environmental orientation signals the brain to dial down the chronic sympathetic alarm, allowing a return to baseline homeostasis. Reason number 37. Protection against blue light toxicity. A narrative review on the impact of blue light reveals a profound paradox. Evening blue light from screens is neurotoxic, but morning blue light from the sun is neuroprotective. Morning sunlight exposure builds a biological resilience, increasing the density of melanopsin receptors, which helps buffer the brain against the negative effects of artificial screen light later in the day. Reason number 38. Enhancement of working memory capacity. Cognitive function is deeply tied to circadian rhythms. Sunlight exposure in the early hours stimulates the prefrontal cortex, the area of the brain responsible for executive function. This light-induced activation enhances working memory capacity, allowing you to hold and manipulate complex information effortlessly throughout your workday. Reason number 39. Reduction of amygdala reactivity. The amygdala is the brain's threat detection center. When circadian rhythms are fragmented, the amygdala becomes hyperreactive, leading to anxiety and emotional volatility. Morning light exposure strengthens the neural connectivity between the prefrontal cortex and the amygdala, providing a top-down calming effect that reduces emotional reactivity to daytime stressors. Reason number 40. Prevention of neurodegenerative parameters. A 2025 study examining shift workers found a direct link between circadian sleep disorders and the early markers of neurodegeneration. Morning sunlight acts as a protective shield for the brain. By ensuring robust sleep-wake cycles, sunlight facilitates the nightly clearance of amyloid beta and tau proteins, the misfolded proteins implicated in cognitive decline. Reason number 41. Upregulation of brain-derived neurotrophic factor. Brain-derived neurotrophic factor, or BDNF, is essentially fertilizer for your brain cells. It promotes neuroplasticity, the ability of the brain to form new connections. Exposure to natural morning light has been shown to significantly upregulate the expression of BDNF, keeping your brain youthful, adaptable, and capable of learning new skills. Reason number 42. Mitigation of seasonal affective disorder. As the days grow shorter in winter, the lack of morning light can trigger seasonal affective disorder, a type of depression driven by circadian misalignment. Deliberate exposure to morning sunlight, even on cloudy days, provides the necessary lux intensity to suppress daytime melatonin and elevate serotonin, effectively dismantling the biochemical architecture of winter depression. Reason number 43. Enhancement of sustained attention. Focus is a finite resource, heavily dependent on the neurochemical balance dictated by your biological clock. Morning light exposure stabilizes the release of acetylcholine in the basal forebrain. This neurotransmitter is vital for sustained attention, allowing you to remain locked into deep work without succumbing to the cognitive fatigue of mid-morning. Reason number 44. Normalization of the default mode network. The default mode network is active when the mind is wandering, often associated with rumination and anxiety. Morning sunlight helps transition the brain out of the default mode network and into the task-positive network. This shift brings your awareness out of your internal anxieties and anchors it firmly and calmly into the present external reality. Reason number 45. Regulation of glutamate and GABA balance. The brain operates on a delicate balance between excitation, driven by glutamate, and inhibition, driven by GABA. Circadian disruption skews this balance toward toxic excitation. Morning light entrainment restores this equilibrium, ensuring that glutamate is cleared efficiently from synapses, allowing GABA to exert its soothing, relaxing effects on the nervous system. Reason number 46. Improvement of spatial navigation and memory. The hippocampus, the brain center for memory and spatial navigation, is highly sensitive to circadian rhythms. Morning light exposure optimizes the physiological environment of the hippocampus, ensuring that the experiences and learning of the day are properly tagged and prepared for memory consolidation during the upcoming night of sleep. Reason number 47. Reduction of mental fatigue via adenosine clearance. Adenosine is a molecule that builds up in the brain while you are awake, creating sleep pressure. If sleep architecture is poor, adenosine is not fully cleared. Morning light, by solidifying the circadian rhythm, ensures that the deep, slow-wave sleep achieved at night is highly efficient at washing away all residual adenosine, leaving the brain truly refreshed. Reason number 48. Harmonization of hemispheric brainwaves. Finally, in the realm of neurobiology, natural sunlight exposure promotes the synchronization of electrical activity between the left and right hemispheres of the brain. This hemispheric coherence is associated with states of flow, deep creativity, and a profound sense of psychological wholeness and peace. Reason number 49. Acceleration of sleep onset latency. We now turn to the night. The most immediate benefit of morning sunlight is observed in sleep onset latency, which is the time it takes to fall asleep. By anchoring the circadian clock early in the day, the body's natural melatonin surge occurs exactly when it should. This precise timing allows you to drift into sleep effortlessly, without the tossing and turning of a confused biological rhythm. Reason number 50. Deepening of slow-wave sleep. Slow-wave sleep, or deep sleep, is the physically restorative phase of the night. Morning sunlight exposure increases the amplitude of your circadian rhythm. A higher amplitude rhythm dictates a deeper drop in nighttime core body temperature, which is the exact physiological trigger required to plunge the brain into prolonged, uninterrupted cycles of deep delta wave sleep. Reason number 51. Optimization of the glymphatic system. During deep sleep, the brain literally shrinks, allowing cerebrospinal fluid to wash through the neural tissue, clearing out metabolic waste. This is the glymphatic system. Because morning light maximizes the duration and depth of slow-wave sleep, it directly maximizes the efficiency of this nightly brainwashing process, protecting you from cognitive decline. Reason number 52. Consolidation of REM sleep cycles. Rapid eye movement, or REM sleep, is crucial for emotional regulation and memory processing. Circadian misalignment often fragments REM sleep. Morning sunlight ensures that the ultradian rhythms of the night are perfectly timed, allowing for long, consolidated periods of REM sleep in the early morning hours, leaving you emotionally resilient for the day ahead. Reason number 53. Prevention of micro-awakenings. Many people suffer from fragmented sleep, waking up dozens of times a night without realizing it. These micro-awakenings are often caused by a flattened circadian curve. Morning sunlight steepens this curve, providing a strong, continuous biological signal for sleep that overrides minor environmental disturbances, keeping you anchored in rest. Reason number 54. Regulation of nighttime prolactin secretion. Prolactin is a hormone that surges during sleep, playing a vital role in immune system regulation and myelin repair in the brain. The precise timing and magnitude of this nighttime prolactin surge are dependent on a properly aligned circadian clock, which is set by your exposure to morning light. Reason number 55. Enhancement of sleep spindle density. During stage 2 of sleep, the brain produces rapid bursts of electrical activity known as sleep spindles. These spindles are responsible for transferring memories from short-term to long-term storage. Robust circadian rhythms, anchored by morning light, have been shown to increase the density and frequency of these sleep spindles, enhancing your ability to learn and remember. Reason number 56. Suppression of nighttime cortisol. If cortisol is high at night, sleep is shallow and fragmented. The morning cortisol spike induced by sunlight creates a negative feedback loop. By achieving a high peak in the morning, the body is biologically programmed to suppress cortisol production entirely during the night, ensuring the stress system remains dormant while you rest. Reason number 57. Alignment of the sleep gate. The sleep gate is the narrow biological window when the body is perfectly primed to transition from wakefulness to sleep. If you miss it, you catch a second wind. Morning sunlight precisely calibrates the timing of this sleep gate, making it predictable. When you listen to this natural rhythm, falling asleep becomes a surrender, not a struggle. Reason number 58. Reduction of sleep apnea severity. While structural issues cause sleep apnea, circadian misalignment exacerbates it by reducing the muscle tone of the upper airway during sleep. Proper light entrainment stabilizes the autonomic nervous system's control over respiratory muscles, potentially reducing the frequency and severity of apneic events throughout the night. Reason number 59. Restoration of the melatonin core temperature inverse relationship. For perfect sleep, melatonin must go up and core temperature must go down. They are inversely related. Morning sunlight ensures this relationship remains tightly coupled. When the light signal fades in the evening, the brain seamlessly orchestrates this dual mechanism, wrapping the body in a cool, neurochemically sedated blanket of rest. Reason number 60. Mitigation of restless leg syndrome symptoms. Restless leg syndrome is deeply tied to dopamine dysregulation in the brain. Because morning sunlight optimizes dopaminergic pathways and receptor density, it helps stabilize the neuromuscular signals that cause nighttime limb restlessness, allowing the body to remain still and peaceful. Reason number 61. Protection against circadian sleep disorders in architecture. A 2024 study on architectural solutions in cool, temperate climates found that interior daylight quality directly impacts user well-being. By designing spaces or simply positioning yourself to receive morning daylight, you actively protect yourself against the insidious onset of delayed sleep phase syndrome, a disorder common in chronically indoor populations. Reason number 62. Modulation of the somatotropic axis. As we dive deeper into the endocrine system, we find the somatotropic axis, which governs the release of human growth hormone. Growth hormone is the master molecule of physical repair released primarily during the first cycles of deep sleep. Morning sunlight, by guaranteeing the depth of this early sleep, maximizes your nightly pulse of growth hormone, repairing tissue and muscle while you dream. Reason number 63, regulation of thyroid function. Your thyroid gland controls your baseline metabolic rate. The secretion of thyroid-stimulating hormone follows a strict circadian rhythm, peaking in the early hours of the night. Morning light exposure ensures this rhythm remains robust, preventing the sluggish metabolism and persistent fatigue associated with circadian-induced subclinical hypothyroidism. Reason number 64, balancing of the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis. The HPA axis is your body's central stress response system. Chronic stress leaves this axis perpetually activated. Morning sunlight acts as an anchoring mechanism, providing a daily calibrating signal that prevents the HPA axis from becoming hypersensitized. It teaches your body the difference between a real threat and baseline existence. Reason number 65, optimization of testosterone production. In men and women, testosterone is crucial for vitality, bone density, and mood. The production of testosterone is deeply tied to REM sleep and circadian alignment. By securing morning light, you ensure the endocrine environment is perfectly primed for the nocturnal synthesis of this vital hormone, maintaining strength and drive. Reason number 66, harmonization of estrogen and progesterone rhythms. For women, the menstrual cycle is heavily influenced by the overarching circadian rhythm. Morning sunlight helps synchronize the intricate dance between estrogen and progesterone. This circadian alignment can reduce the severity of premenstrual symptoms and ensure a smoother, more predictable endocrine flow throughout the month. Reason number 67, deceleration of cellular senescence. As cells age, some stop dividing but refuse to die, becoming senescent, or zombie cells that secrete inflammatory markers. Robust circadian rhythms maintained by morning light enhance the body's immune surveillance, allowing natural killer cells to identify and clear these senescent cells, thereby slowing the biological aging process. Reason number 68, upregulation of autophagy. Autophagy is the cellular housekeeping process where cells consume their own damaged organelles. This process is highly circadian, peaking during the fasting window of the night. Morning sunlight, by clearly defining the feeding and fasting phases, ensures that nighttime autophagy operates at maximum efficiency, keeping your cellular machinery pristine. Reason number 69, preservation of telomere length. Telomeres are the protective caps at the ends of your chromosomes. As they shorten, cellular aging accelerates. Research indicates that chronic circadian disruption accelerates telomere attrition. By viewing morning sunlight, you reduce oxidative stress and preserve the length of your telomeres, effectively slowing the ticking of your biological clock. Reason number 70, modulation of epigenetic methylation. Your DNA is hardware, but your epigenome is the software that tells the DNA what to do. The timing of light exposure alters epigenetic methylation patterns across thousands of genes. Morning sunlight ensures that genes associated with repair and longevity are turned on, while genes associated with inflammation and disease are silenced. Reason number 71, enhancement of stem cell proliferation. Stem cells are the ultimate regenerative tool of the body. The mobilization and proliferation of stem cells from the bone marrow follow a circadian rhythm, peaking during rest. Morning light entrainment ensures this rhythm is amplified, maximizing your body's ability to heal wounds and regenerate tissues overnight. Reason number 72, reduction of advanced glycation end products. When blood sugar is chronically elevated due to circadian mismatch, sugars bind to proteins, creating advanced glycation end products, which stiffen tissues and accelerate aging. Because morning light improves insulin sensitivity, it directly reduces the formation of these damaging molecules, keeping your skin, blood vessels, and joints supple. Reason number 73. Activation of FOXO3 longevity pathways. FOXO3 is a gene strongly associated with human longevity. Its activation is dependent on periods of low insulin and low cellular energy, typical of the nighttime fasting state. Morning sunlight, by consolidating the active metabolic phase to the daytime, ensures a deep, uninterrupted fasting state at night, allowing FOXO3 to exert its life-extending effects. Reason number 74. Maintenance of the extracellular matrix. The structural integrity of your tissues relies on the extracellular matrix, primarily composed of collagen. The synthesis and degradation of collagen are strictly governed by peripheral circadian clocks. Morning light ensures that the delicate balance of collagen turnover is maintained, preserving the elasticity and youthfulness of your biological architecture. Reason number 75. Priming of the innate immune system. As the sun rises, so does your immune defense. Morning sunlight exposure aligns the biological clock of your innate immune cells, such as macrophages and neutrophils. This entrainment ensures that these first responder cells are highly active and circulating during the day when you are most likely to encounter pathogens, providing a robust defensive shield. Reason number 76. Regulation of the adaptive immune response. While the innate system is active during the day, the adaptive immune system, responsible for creating antibodies and long-term immunity, does its deepest work at night. Morning sunlight ensures this temporal segregation is maintained. It allows T cells to migrate to the lymph nodes during sleep, where they consolidate the immunological memories of the day. Reason number 77. Synthesis of vitamin D3 via UVB radiation. Though primarily associated with midday sun, late morning sunlight provides the UVB radiation necessary to synthesize vitamin D3 in the skin. Vitamin D is not just a vitamin. It is a corticosteroid hormone that regulates over 1,000 different genes, deeply influencing immune function, bone health, and mood stabilization. Reason number 78. Upregulation of antimicrobial peptides. The skin is your primary barrier to the outside world. Morning sunlight exposure stimulates the production of antimicrobial peptides, such as cathelicidin, in the epithelial cells. This creates a chemical shield on the surface of your skin, neutralizing harmful bacteria and viruses before they can breach your biological perimeter. Reason number 79. Mitigation of autoimmune reactivity. Autoimmune diseases often flare up when the body's regulatory T cells fail to suppress an overactive immune response. Circadian alignment through morning light enhances the function of these regulatory T cells. By maintaining a steady, predictable biological rhythm, the immune system remains calm and targeted, reducing the likelihood of attacking its own tissues. Reason number 80. Synchronization of the oral microbiome. The bacteria in your mouth also follow a circadian rhythm, influencing everything from dental health to systemic inflammation. Morning light exposure, coupled with the first meal of the day, sets the clock for the oral microbiome, promoting the growth of beneficial, nitrate-reducing bacteria that contribute to cardiovascular health. Reason number 81. Enhancement of intestinal barrier integrity. A disrupted circadian rhythm can lead to a leaky gut, where the tight junctions of the intestinal lining become permeable. Morning sunlight entrains the clock genes within the enterocytes, the cells lining your gut. This strengthens the tight junctions, preventing endotoxins from entering the bloodstream and triggering systemic inflammation. Reason number 82. Modulation of short-chain fatty acid production. The beneficial bacteria in your gut produce short-chain fatty acids like butyrate, which are essential for brain health and metabolism. The production of these molecules peaks during specific times of the circadian cycle. Morning light ensures this production is optimized, providing a steady supply of neuroprotective fuel to the brain. Reason number 83. Reduction of hepatic steatosis risk. Non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, or hepatic steatosis, is deeply linked to circadian misalignment. By anchoring the feeding and fasting cycle with morning light, you prevent the ectopic storage of fat in the liver. The liver's metabolic clock is synchronized, ensuring it processes lipids efficiently rather than storing them in a state of metabolic confusion. Reason number 84. Optimization of bile acid synthesis. Bile acids are necessary for the digestion of fats and the absorption of fat-soluble vitamins. The synthesis of bile acids in the liver follows a strict circadian rhythm. Morning sunlight ensures that bile is produced and released exactly when needed during the daytime feeding window, optimizing digestion and nutrient assimilation. Reason number 85. Enhancement of lymphatic drainage. The lymphatic system, responsible for clearing fluid and cellular waste from the tissues, relies on the mechanical movement of the body and the rhythmic contractions of smooth muscle. Morning light, which naturally stimulates morning movement and autonomic tone, facilitates the efficient drainage of the lymphatic system, reducing tissue swelling and stagnation. Reason number 86. Regulation of the inflammasome. The inflammasome is a multi-protein complex inside cells that triggers the inflammatory response. Chronic activation of the inflammasome drives aging and disease. Morning sunlight entrainment provides the precise biological signaling required to keep the inflammasome dormant when not needed, preventing the slow, destructive burn of chronic cellular inflammation. Reason number 87. Support for shift worker microbiome recovery. For those who must work nights, the microbiome suffers immense disruption. Research shows that deliberate, timed exposure to morning sunlight on recovery days is the most effective way to rapidly realign the gut bacteria's circadian clock, mitigating the gastrointestinal distress frequently experienced by shift-working healthcare professionals. Reason number 88. Absorption of near-infrared photons. As we reach the most profound depths of cellular biology, we look at the quantum effects of light. Morning sunlight is rich in near-infrared radiation. These specific photons penetrate deep into the body, passing through the skull and into the brain tissue, where they interact directly with the cellular machinery in a process known as photobiomodulation. Reason number 89. Activation of cytochrome C oxidase. The primary target of these near-infrared photons is an enzyme within the mitochondria called cytochrome C oxidase. When this enzyme absorbs morning light, its structure changes, allowing it to process oxygen more efficiently. This quantum biological event instantly boosts the energy production of every cell exposed to the light. Reason number 90. Release of bound nitric oxide from mitochondria. Under stress, nitric oxide can bind to cytochrome C oxidase, halting energy production. The near-infrared light from the morning sun literally knocks this bound nitric oxide off the enzyme. This frees the mitochondria to resume massive ATP production, while the liberated nitric oxide dilates local blood vessels, bringing fresh oxygen to the tissue. Reason number 91. Structuring of interfacial water. Inside your cells, water does not behave like liquid water in a glass. It forms a gel-like phase known as interfacial or exclusion zone water. Morning sunlight, particularly the infrared spectrum, expands this exclusion zone. This structured water acts as a battery, storing electromagnetic energy that the cell uses to power its myriad biochemical reactions. Reason number 92. Enhancement of cellular voltage. A healthy cell operates at a specific electrical voltage, typically around -70 millivolts. When cells lose this voltage, they become prone to dysfunction and disease. The quantum energy provided by morning sunlight through the structuring of cellular water and mitochondrial activation helps maintain and restore this optimal transmembrane electrical potential. Reason number 93. Synchronization of subcellular oscillators. We have spoken of the master clock and peripheral clocks, but even individual organelles within the cell, like the endoplasmic reticulum, have their own microscopic oscillators. The massive energy influx and signaling cascade initiated by morning sunlight perfectly synchronize these subcellular oscillators, ensuring the microscopic factory of the cell operates without friction. Reason number 94. Modulation of reactive oxygen species signaling. Reactive oxygen species are often viewed only as damaging free radicals, but in small, controlled amounts, they are vital signaling molecules. The burst of mitochondrial activity caused by morning light creates a brief, healthy pulse of reactive oxygen species. This pulse signals the nucleus to upregulate the cell's internal antioxidant defense systems for the rest of the day. Reason number 95. Optimization of the quantum tunneling of electrons. Within the electron transport chain, electrons move not just by physical transfer, but by quantum tunneling, disappearing from one location and instantly appearing in another. The precise electromagnetic environment created by the absorption of morning sunlight optimizes the probability of this quantum tunneling, making cellular energy production flawlessly efficient. Reason number 96. Regulation of the mitochondrial unfolded protein response. When mitochondrial proteins misfold due to stress, it triggers a protective mechanism called the unfolded protein response. The daily circadian rhythm, powerfully anchored by morning light, dictates the timing of this repair process, ensuring that mitochondria are rebuilt and optimized during the deepest phases of your sleep. Reason number 97. Enhancement of biophoton emission. Living cells naturally emit ultra-weak particles of light known as biophotons, which are thought to be a form of instantaneous cellular communication. A biological system perfectly entrained by morning sunlight exhibits a highly coherent, rhythmic emission of biophotons, indicating a state of profound quantum biological order and health. Reason number 98. Alignment with the Schumann resonance. While speculative in mainstream medicine but deeply rooted in biophysics, the human brain's alpha waves naturally align with the Earth's electromagnetic frequency, the Schumann resonance. Stepping outside into the morning light grounds the body and synchronizes the brain's electrical output with the natural electromagnetic pulse of the planet. Reason number 99. Precision tracking via wearable technology. A 2026 review of wearable technology and circadian research confirms that the physiological changes induced by morning light are now quantifiable. Wearables track the exact moment your core temperature rises and your HRV stabilizes after light exposure. This data proves that the invisible photons of morning light are creating measurable structural changes in your biology every single day. Reason number 100. The ultimate foundation for deep rest. And finally, reason 100. Morning sunlight is the architect of your night. Every photon absorbed in the morning is a promise kept for the evening. By aligning your neurochemistry, your metabolism, your endocrine system, and your quantum biology with the rising sun, you have built an unbreakable biological foundation for the deep, restorative, uninterrupted sleep you are about to experience.